Welcome to One Word a Day. I'm Sophie, your pilot into the universe of Chinese. Let's continue exploring Chinese from the perspective of how they look to how they mean. Okay, lately this week we have been talking about box with lines in between them. Either one horizontal line, two horizontal line, or horizontal vertical line both. And yesterday we have this vertical line puncture through the roof. Today, puncture through the bottom. What's the difference? Are they related? All right, here's the answer. This means shell versus yesterday means from. It seems like far away. Meaning, and it's pronounced as 假. And we can see traditional Chinese looks exactly the same versus 2,000 years ago. Things get more interesting and get more revealing. Okay. What here, this imagery tells us is this is a wrapping posture with a chimney on the top. And then we have this horizontal line and a vertical line. So oftentimes Chinese use horizontal line attached to a vertical line to show you directional of movement. So here this vertical line means this horizontal line is popping out of the shell. Okay, here's the answer to the shell question. So it basically describes this popping moment of the seed from its shell. And I'm not exactly sure of this line, dot over there, over this wrapping. And you can see in contemporary Chinese, there is no dot over the top of it. So something got erased, something got closed. And so this top dot got flipped down and connected into this. Originally, it has nothing to do with farm field. It looks different and the story completely different, but somehow ended up looking similar, suspiciously similar of this two-directional vertical line. And this is, I guess, the beguiling nature of Chinese. Even if they look like, they may be completely different stories, origins, and the transformation of the years. Sometimes, I guess, one of the driving forces is to make it easier to write. And you can imagine drawing out this enclosure is no easy task, and it would make it more streamlined to flip this vertical line, like tiny dot above it, to flip it downward to connect into this and to close the bottom, right? So a lot of transformation happened over the years for the ease of writing, and then it kind of lost track, like what does that mean, right? But as the language user, I learned this. I learned this imagery and I learned the meaning, shell, and I kind of, through repetition, build the connection of this look means this meaning. Now we know. All right, so a few expressions. I make it more practical nowadays because probably we also have some four character Chinese set phrases, but today I'm using some common translations from foreign concepts and some common daily everyday stuff. Okay, so because it means shell, and from this plant seed popping out of its shell, and this shell basically is a hard surface. And Chinese transfer that hard surface onto human body hard surface. What are the human hard surface? Take a moment to think, where on our body that the things are actually hard surfaced, like comparable to a shell? Well, here, if you know these are the answers. 指甲. Both of them pronounce exactly the same. Even the curl of the tongue, 指 instead of 子, right? So both are curled tongued, 指甲. However, this means finger. and in particular is index finger. And here is toe. And now you know, if we're talking about finger shell, that's our fingernail. And if we're talking about our toe shell, that's our toenail. So simply we transfer the shell character onto human body to make it our nails. Either toe or finger, same type of nails. Okay. 甲壳虫 shell 壳 is another way to say shell, and 壳 often paired with 贝壳 seashell. So now you know this 甲 came from the seed popping from its shell. So it's a plant shell versus 贝壳 is animal shell, right? And then we have animal after it. 甲壳虫 虫 means a worm or bug. So here is another like Chinese flexibility. This 虫, if you look at the ancient version, is like a squiggly worm. So it's a soft body thing, but eventually we also use it as this hard-shelled bug as well. So we use the same 虫, simply we don't differentiate between worm and bug. They're little things crawling around or flying around. They are probably, to the Chinese language users, not that significant to create a separate Chinese character for each. Okay, so 甲壳虫 simply means, okay, I guess 甲壳虫 actually not only means a type of bug, but it is a Chinese translation of the British band Beatles. So when Beatles was introduced to Chinese, we translate it as 甲壳虫乐队. 乐队 means band. So Beatles, band, that's how they're understood as in Chinese. 甲骨文, 甲 again, shell, 骨 bone, shell bone. Well, probably we don't need to pay attention too much to the sequence of the word. Shell bone, 甲骨, simply means the bones or the turtles, shells, either resources. 文 means text. That's the ancient Chinese language characters preserved through either turtles' shells or the bones carved onto animal bones. And I guess through all the prehistoric civilizations, the ways to make their message still readable, like preserved over a long span of time, probably shows through such hard surface, but still scratchable, right? Carvable surface, either seashell, not seashells, but turtles, shells, or bones. 甲骨文 is a Chinese translation of the American tech company Oracle, because 甲骨文, Chinese translation, before the company Oracle is already the Oracle. And Oracle in English simply means such message preserved or carved onto such oracle used like scripts written, or oracle like predictive scripts written, preserved onto such hard surfaced bones. And Chinese, I guess, particularly is 甲骨. It's more of tortoise shells. So it's not a lot of like bone shells, but tortoise shells that we later on in archaeology discovery dig it out from different piles of cultural preservation sites, and they were preserved on the tortoise shells. And what we see here are not oracle Chinese. Those were more irregular, more like it's the garden variety before the standardization. This is the first standardization of Chinese characters compiled by Xu Chen about 2,000 years ago. So that shell, 甲, here I'm showing you toenail, just to talk about, okay, we use 假 in our human toenail. And a side commentary, it's really hard to find a picture of unpainted toenails when I search on Unsplash of fingernail or toenail. Things are always got painted. And I don't quite understand the cultural trend of why we have to cover our already beautiful shells on ourselves with artificial colors. Just a fruit of thought. Yeah. Thank you for your time. See you another day.